Hi, I wanted to welcome you to ColumnSpace. It's a multi-user platform that allows you to use any data points that you want and select them and distribute them amongst a team. For example, we've created a column in which it has a new user. This new user then can be accessed from anywhere on the World Wide Web. This user now can own any type of columns, and within that, spaces. How we do this is to understand what a column is and what a space is. A column basically is a one unit of data points. A space is units within those data points. For example, you create a column, think of it like a newspaper, that has all the containers and all the information about your column and all the data points that you want to present. And then within that, you have a space. That's all the information regarding that column. It can be in different sections. For example, you can have a column full of data points that are videos, or you can have them being text files, or you can have them describe something in particular. The reason we do this is because in ColumnSpace, we're basically organizing columns of data, and that can be any digital asset that you want to organize, and then you put them in spaces so that way you understand clearly what is the hierarchy of your data point. So in this case, we've created many columns, and in those columns, you have access to data points. In this case, if you look at the screen, you're going to see usernames. These usernames are people who own columns. Now, you can be a user, you can be an admin, or you can just be general public, because if your data points are available to all public, then you basically create data points that are public in nature. As we move through the ColumnSpace system, you will see that we have organized data in just this way. To make it easier for us, we've actually added ways that you can add multiple people and multiple columns. This way, it's kind of like a file security system. You create a list of people who have access to various elements of the program, of the data points, and they have ability to have security based on those elements. For example, any access point could have user read write. It could have, just like in any file system, ColumnSpace does the same thing. The reason why we do it this way is because we wanted a system that was self-contained but actually works like a file system and works like a database at the same time. This way, when we're creating elements for different types of businesses or business units, we can actually quickly organize them and give access to them based on who they are, how they need to use it. In this example here, we can see that there are many different elements that have been added to a file structure. In this case, I say file structure. You wonder what that is. Basically, a file structure is an organization of elements within our database system. We call them spaces. Inside those elements in a space, you're going to have records, right? That's how a database works. So basically what we do is that we organize the elements, all the records within our database in a file structure, in a flat system as we have here. So that way people can access them many to many, which is many people can access that one point of data. They can change it. And when they change that element, it will change throughout the whole system. We're kind of used to doing this in a customer management system, because in a customer management system, we're basically managing all access with all access of data through many people accessing them. In this particular case, you see on the screen, you see we have many elements that have been given a definition. Here, in this particular case, we're exporting all the elements so that way they are available to the system in the outside world. For example, if you want to have a private system, you give it read-only, or you give it access only to a certain list of people. In this case, you can see all the XML data points. Those are all the data points that have been entered into the database via our form system that people can access when they access it from the public side of the database part. I'll show you that in a second. Basically here, this is all the elements of the XML that will be pushed out from our database. Now the reason why we do this once again, because all those elements that you saw can be pushed out to any system. For example, a www, which is the World Wide Web. Or it can be pushed out to Roku, or it could push out to any XML compliant input system that we have out there. For example, so we have an application of an engineering school who wants to be able to use all the access points of their windmills and that data available to their whole team to manage. In our particular system, we create those same data elements that you saw earlier. We create a form field for them. Multiple people can access those points. And more importantly, when all of the windmills all over the country push data back into our system, now a central point can see those elements and they can manipulate them and push them back if they need to. So our system is an open system, so that way we can push and pull. It means we can pull data from a device, or that device can push elements to us, and we can read them in a customer management system type of way. Or we can get those data points and push them out to public access if that's what needs to happen as well. So basically, our system is designed so it's open sourced and allows many people to access our data points, and we can restrict them via lists. In our system, we actually create a list where we can actually have access points, and I showed you that security model a couple minutes ago. Well, using our system, we felt that we wanted to solve a problem. The problem was, how do you create database structures so that you can use elements quickly and in a multi-user environment so many people can log in and access those points? The traditional way is to create database structure, give elements of security, create forms, get those forms, and give access via whatever the file system or through the database system itself. We decided to take a different approach. We wanted to give you the ability to make these forms immediately, get those data elements available to anybody who's in a list, and then they can use it from there. For example, right here is every element. All these elements are defined, they're pushed out to an XML file, and then when it gets to the XML file, when the file system reads them, they will say, hey, do you have access to this? To give you an example, we created a Netflix type of system. Here we have a Netflix. All these elements that you see on the page are actually data form elements that we created in the admin tool. They've been filled out, and now the web browser, www, has grabbed those XML elements and has created the structure you see here today. For example, you see a video. That video actually is an XML readout that says, hey, this is the video, this is the picture, this is where the video is, and as you play it, you'll be able to run it. For example, right here, we have a system where we have 5 elements that you can upload. A video file, an image, and basically what you can do from there is basically push on the button and it'll create the element for you. Right here, I wanted to show you one more step. I wanted to show you the system, how it is, and here we are. We're going to log in as a user. The user is now accessing all the data points that you saw through XML. That means it's at the www browser is actually reading the XML files, and it's generating the page that you see here today. Now, if you go to the menu on the left-hand side, you'll actually see all the menu elements as well. So here's the video playing, and so that was actually playing the XML file descriptor, and it's telling it, hey, go play this video. Now this is the user login, so we're logging in as a user. So user can be either an admin, or it could just be a plain user who has access to elements. The reason why you want that is, let's say you had elements that you added to your data structure and you want multiple people to be able to change that. For example, the title, the name, maybe it's access points, or you want your appliance to be able to push data to this element. So you would create an account for that appliance. It'd come here and update the information back by the back end, obviously. But it's a customer, I say customer because anybody can log in that has access to those elements and they can look at it. So you could have your staff log in to this one particular windmill. In this case, we'll use the windmill example. The data points were pushed to our system, and now they can see all the elements, the data points, all the elements that have been pushed to the system. Now, here we go. You see when you add things, you can actually describe it, all the information. These are all XML files that were filled in. For example, here's all the elements, and this would be, in this case, could be many different windmills, or in this case, it happens to be a movie. It's an example of a Netflix type of system. So basically what we're doing now is these are all the titles of the films that we're going to present to the public. Here's all the elements with them. You see there's films, there's podcasts, because those are the elements that we wanted to use in this particular system. Now, since ours is an open system, it doesn't have to be movies. It actually can be anything you want. But the system works the same. So here we go. We're actually looking at all the different elements of that. When I use the example of the windmill, or in this case, one movie, you can see everything about that movie. Now, each of these subcategories is something that we custom build based on the customer and the business unit. In this particular case, we wanted to keep track of all movies. We wanted to allow people to upload their movies to our system, and we wanted to be able to rank them, score them, just like a good festival kind of system, so they can actually say, hey, this is what we want. In this particular case, I showed you an example how we can export the elements to another system. For example, export it to a Roku or to a Netflix, but Netflix doesn't let you do XML, but if it did, let's say to a Apple TV, let's say to a Siri, because Siri actually does accept. Right here in this section, we actually show multi-users. So if you want any element to have access only by people who live within that list, so that way they can add any individual element and change them if they have ownership to that list. That way you can have many people update the information within every different section for you, instead of having only one person do it. Here you search our library, just typical searches. So basically what that does is search all the files and be able to bring back the information for you. As we move forward, we kind of see that all the information that we change in one piece will automatically be pushed out and then automatically come back and populate into our system. So this is actually real time. You push data points out and boom, you have the changes. And that's what this is talking about. These are all the different elements of the movies in this particular Netflix example, where we're actually showing how it works. In this particular case, you click on a button, it shows you the movie. In this case, it plays, and now it begins. Now, what that really did, what we saw happened here, is it actually came from the XML files. The WW browser, whoever you have programmed the front end, will actually grab those XML components, and now you could actually have 10 different websites do the same thing, because they're all grabbing the same data points. They just all look different. Maybe you wanted that for different user case or business cases. On the left-hand side, you see all the different, what we call columns that within our one system. Now, use case for that, if actually you had many companies, they all want to have their own present within your website, within your system. You basically have their own columns, so now you can break them down and see their elements individually. In the windmill example, as I talked about earlier, you could have many columns for each windmill so you can access each data point. The system doesn't change because it's basically saying, hey, I have access points that I want to manage, and I need a system that will manage them for me so that multiple users can access it. Basically, that's what Column Space is doing for you.